Another welfare case trying to scan my bank. Richard Keller snatched the check from Marcus Johnson's hands and slammed it down on the marble counter. The bank manager's pale face flushed red with anger as he shoved Marcus against the teller window, sending his leather portfolio flying open. Papers scattered across the polished floor of First Capital Bank's main branch. "Sir, that check is perfectly valid," Marcus began, his voice steady despite the assault. $50,000? Keller sneered, loud enough for everyone in the lobby to hear. "People like you don't have this kind of money unless something's not right." He dramatically ripped the check in half, then again letting the pieces flutter to the ground. "Now get out, before I call security." The bank fell silent. A dozen customers stood frozen, watching the scene unfold. At least 5 had phones raised, recording everything. The young teller behind the counter looked mortified, her hand covering her mouth in shock. Marcus straightened his charcoal suit jacket, maintaining remarkable composure for someone who'd just been physically assaulted. He calmly collected his scattered documents while Keller loomed over him, arms crossed in smug satisfaction. Have you ever witnessed someone being judged so completely wrong that it made you question everything about justice in America? If you hit that subscribe button now, you'll see exactly what happens when a racist bank manager picks the absolute worst customer to discriminate against. 2 hours earlier, the alarm chimed at 5:30 a.m. and Marcus Johnson was already reaching to silence it before the second beat. Morning sunlight hadn't yet broken through the large windows of his Lakeshore Drive penthouse in downtown Chicago. He slipped out of bed, careful not to disturb the peaceful emptiness on the other side, a habit he couldn't break in the 3 years since Vanessa's passing. In the kitchen, Marcus started his morning ritual. The premium coffee maker hummed to life as NPR played softly from hidden speakers. "Markets opened strong in Asian trading overnight," the commentator announced, with banking stocks showing particular strength following regulatory changes. Marcus glanced at the family photos prominently displayed on the marble countertop. Vanessa's smile still brought warmth to his chest. Her Harvard Law graduation, their wedding day, and holding their daughter Zoe as a newborn. He gently touched the frame, a silent good morning to the wife cancer had taken too soon. "Dad, you're up early?" 13-year-old Zoe appeared in the doorway, already dressed in her private school uniform. "Big day today, sweetheart." He poured her a glass of orange juice. "The acquisition finalizes this morning." "The bank thing?" She grabbed a banana from the fruit bowl. "Is that why you're wearing the serious suit?" Marcus smiled. His daughter had always been perceptive. "This suit was your mom's favorite, seemed appropriate for today." He didn't mention that he'd specifically chosen the understated charcoal over his more expensive options. Today wasn't about flaunting wealth. It was about respecting the institution he was about to steward. "Will you be home for dinner?" Zoe asked, scrolling through her phone. "I have that science presentation, remember?" "Wouldn't miss it." Marcus checked his watch, a subtle Patek Philippe that most wouldn't recognize as costing more than a car. "Mrs. Rivera is taking you to school this morning. I need to handle some things downtown before the bank appointment." "Good morning, Mr. Johnson," their neighbor, Dr. Aisha Williams, called from her balcony as Marcus stepped out to check the weather. "Big day, right? The community's buzzing about your acquisition." "Morning, Aisha. Nothing's official until the final paperwork's signed," he responded modestly. "Well, when it is, you've got to let the neighborhood association throw you a proper celebration. First black-owned bank in the city's history deserves recognition." Marcus nodded appreciatively before heading back inside. He opened his briefcase to double-check the contents. Acquisition documents, certified bank checks, his federal banking regulatory approvals, and the verification letter from the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. Everything was in order. His phone buzzed with a text from the governor. "Congratulations on the big day. Call me when it's official." Marcus didn't respond. He'd save that conversation for after everything was signed. What no one at First Capital Bank knew, what the public announcement wouldn't reveal until tomorrow, was that Marcus Johnson's investment firm had quietly purchased 53% of the bank's shares over the past year. Today's routine meeting was to finalize the transfer of operational control. The same bank that had denied his first business loan 15 years ago, the same institution that had redlined his childhood neighborhood for decades. Today, Marcus Johnson would become its majority owner and chairman. As he closed his briefcase, Marcus caught sight of a small news segment playing on the kitchen TV. First Capital Bank announced strong quarterly earnings yesterday, though analysts remain concerned about leadership transitions following CEO Richard Keller's controversial comments at last month's shareholder meeting. Data new. Marcus switched off the TV. He'd deal with Keller soon enough. "Car's ready, sir," announced the building concierge through the intercom. "Be right down," Marcus replied, adjusting his tie in the mirror, the same tie Vanessa had given him when he landed his first major investor. "Today's for you too," he whispered to her photograph. In the elevator, Marcus received another text, this time from his attorney. "Bank board members all arrived. Keller seems agitated. Still doesn't know who the buyer is." Marcus smiled slightly. He'd specifically requested his identity be kept confidential during the acquisition process, working through his investment firm rather than personally. Sometimes anonymity had its advantages. It revealed people's true characters. The doorman greeted him warmly. "Good luck today, Mr. Johnson. The whole building's proud of you." "Thank you, James. Let's hope everything goes smoothly." Marcus handed him an envelope. A check that would help with James' son's college tuition, something he did quietly for many service workers in his building. The sleek black Tesla waited at the curb, but Marcus decided against it. "I think I'll walk for a bit, clear my head." "Can you tell Charles to meet me at the office in an hour?" "Of course, sir." Marcus started his walk through downtown Chicago, intentionally taking the route that would pass First Capital's main branch, the building that would soon carry his financial vision forward. His phone rang again. It was Zoe. "Dad? Mrs. Rivera says to remind you about your blood pressure medication." Marcus smiled. Between his daughter and housekeeper, nothing slipped through the cracks. "Already took it, but thank her for me. Also, you should eat something. I know how you get on big days." "I'm fine, Zoe. Mom would say the same thing," she added softly. "You're right about that," Marcus admitted. "I'll grab something before the meeting." He ended the call thinking about how much Zoe had grown since losing her mother, taking on the role of making sure he took care of himself. Today wasn't just about business success. It was about creating a legacy for her, about transforming an institution that had historically excluded people who looked like them. The weight of that responsibility pressed against his shoulders as he approached the gleaming headquarters of Johnson Capital Investments. His executive team was already assembled in the conference room, reviewing the final acquisition strategy. The morning passed in a flurry of calls and briefings. By 11:30, Marcus was ready to head to First Capital Bank for what the current management believed was simply a meeting with a potential large investor. His team would remain behind. This first visit he wanted to experience as a regular customer. "Remember," his CFO advised as Marcus prepared to leave, "no matter how they treat you, by this afternoon, you'll be their boss." "It's not about power," Marcus corrected. "It's about transformation." His lawyer handed him a final document, your certified check for the remaining transaction balance, $50,000 to complete the escrow requirements. Marcus placed it carefully in his portfolio. Time to see if First Capital Bank's customer service lives up to their advertising. Little did he know just how revealing that visit would be. Marcus Johnson entered First Capital Bank at precisely 11:45 a.m. The marble-floored lobby gleamed under crystal chandeliers, a temple of financial privilege that had served Chicago's elite for generations. Several customers milled about, most dressed in business attire similar to his own. He approached an available teller, a young black woman whose nameplate identified her as Tanya Wilson. "Good morning," Marcus smiled. "I'd like to deposit this check, please." He slid the $50,000 0-cent certified check across the counter, along with his ID. Tanya examined the check, then glanced at his identification. "This is a substantial amount, sir. I'll need to get a manager's approval for anything over $10,000 0 cents. "Of course," Marcus nodded, understanding the banking regulation. Tanya picked up her phone. "Mr. Keller, I have a customer depositing a large check that needs approval." She listened for a moment. "Yes, sir, right away." Hanging up, she offered an apologetic smile. "Our manager will be with you shortly, Mr. Johnson." Marcus waited patiently, observing the bank's operations. The security guard watched him with unusual intensity. A well-dressed white couple deposited what appeared to be a significant check at another window without any manager being called. After 5 minutes, Richard Keller emerged from his office. In his mid-50s, the bank manager carried himself with the entitled confidence of someone who'd never had his authority questioned. His eyes narrowed slightly upon seeing Marcus. "You have a check that needs verification?" Keller asked, not bothering with a greeting. "Yes," Marcus replied calmly. "I'm depositing this certified check." Keller took the check, studying it with exaggerated scrutiny. $50,000. That's quite a sum. Where did this come from? "It's a certified check from my company," Marcus explained. "And what company is that?" "Johnson Capital Investments." Keller's eyebrows raised. "Never heard of it. What exactly do you do there?" Marcus maintained his composure. "We're a private investment firm. I'm the CEO." A disbelieving smile crossed Keller's face. "I see, and you're depositing this rather than wiring it because I prefer to establish a personal banking relationship when possible." Keller's condescension intensified. "Well, Mr. Johnson, was it? We have verification protocols for checks of this size." "I understand completely," Marcus replied. "You'll need to wait while we verify this. It could take some time." Keller's tone suggested he hoped Marcus would leave rather than endure the wait. "I'm not in a hurry," Marcus assured him, taking a seat in the waiting area. For the next 20 minutes, Marcus observed Keller making phone calls from his office, occasionally glancing through the glass partition with growing irritation. The bank manager finally emerged, walking directly to the security guard and whispering something that made both men look in Marcus's direction. The security guard, a stocky man with Davis on his nameplate, positioned himself closer to where Marcus sat. Keller approached again. "Mr. Johnson, this check appears to be irregular." "Irregular?" Marcus questioned. "It's a certified check from Chase Manhattan. You're welcome to contact them directly." "That won't be necessary. We're simply not comfortable accepting it." Keller's voice raised slightly, drawing attention from nearby customers. "Perhaps you should try another bank." "I selected First Capital specifically," Marcus replied. "May I ask what the specific issue is with my certified check?" Keller's expression hardened. "Let's just say people coming in off the street with checks this size raise certain concerns." A woman at a nearby desk had started recording the interaction on her phone, her expression troubled by what she was witnessing. "Are you suggesting the check is fraudulent?" Marcus asked directly. "Let me be clear." Keller leaned forward, lowering his voice but not enough to prevent others from hearing. "In this neighborhood, someone like you carrying this kind of money raises red flags. We have a responsibility to our legitimate customers." "Someone like me?" Marcus maintained perfect composure. "You know exactly what I mean," Keller replied. "Now, I'm asking you politely to leave before this becomes a security issue." The security guard moved closer. "I believe federal banking regulations require you to provide a specific reason for refusing a certified check," Marcus stated calmly. "Is it your bank's policy to violate those regulations?" Keller's face flushed. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm asking a simple question about banking procedures." Two more customers had begun recording the escalating situation. The young teller, Tanya, looked increasingly uncomfortable. "Fine," Keller snapped, grabbing the check from his desk. "You want a reason?" "Our verification system flagged this check. It's probably stolen or forged." "That's a serious accusation," Marcus replied. "A certified check can't be forged. It's guaranteed by the issuing bank." "Listen," Keller's voice grew louder. "I've been managing this bank for 15 years. I know a suspicious transaction when I see one." More phones raised around the lobby. Someone whispered, "Is this really happening?" "Mr. Keller," Marcus said calmly, "I'd like to speak with someone from your corporate office." "That won't be happening," Keller replied. "In fact, I think we're done here." He reached for Marcus's check. "Let me return this to you and you can be on your way." As Marcus extended his hand, Keller deliberately pulled the check back. "Actually, I'm required to hold suspicious financial instruments. Bank policy." "You just said you were returning it," Marcus pointed out. "I've reconsidered. This check requires further investigation." Keller's thin smile couldn't mask his obvious satisfaction. An older woman who had been quietly watching approached. "Young man, I've been banking here for 30 years and I've never seen anything like this. Would you like me to be a witness?" "Thank you, ma'am," Marcus nodded appreciatively. "That won't be necessary, but I appreciate your concern." The woman turned to Keller. "Richard, your father would be ashamed of how you're conducting yourself." Keller's face darkened. "Mrs. Abernathy, this doesn't concern you." "Apparently it concerns everyone now," she gestured to the growing number of people recording the confrontation. Someone was narrating for a live stream. A scandal happening right now at First Capital on Michigan Avenue. Bank manager refusing to deposit a black customer's check. Enough." Keller snapped, his composure cracking. "Davis, please escort Mr. Johnson out of the building." The security guard hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "Now," Keller demanded. "Sir," the guard addressed Marcus reluctantly, "I need to ask you to leave." "Am I being removed for attempting to make a legitimate deposit?" Marcus asked, clearly ensuring the recording phones captured his question. "You're being removed for creating a disturbance," Keller interjected. "I've been completely calm," Marcus pointed out. The security cameras will confirm that. Keller's patience finally shattered. He grabbed the check, held it up dramatically for everyone to see, then tore it into pieces. "There. Now, there's nothing to deposit." "Get out of my bank," the crowd gasped. Tanya the teller covered her mouth in shock. The live streamer narrated, "Oh my God, he just destroyed the man's check." "This is insane." And that's when Marcus Johnson had been shoved against the counter, his portfolio scattering across the floor as Keller demanded he leave before things get worse. The bank lobby had transformed into a theater of tension. Security guard Davis stood awkwardly between Marcus and Keller, clearly uncertain about enforcing the manager's demands. The live stream counter showed over 3,000 viewers already watching, comments flooding in too fast to read. "Sir, please," Davis said quietly to Marcus. "I don't want this to escalate." "I understand," Marcus replied calmly, still collecting his scattered documents. "But Mr. Keller has destroyed my check and physically assaulted me. That requires resolution," Keller sneered. "Resolution? You'll be lucky if I don't have you arrested for attempting to commit bank fraud." A sharp ring cut through the tension. It was the direct line on Keller's desk, the one reserved for calls from corporate headquarters. The sound drained some color from Keller's face. "Excuse me," he said curtly, moving to answer it. The crowd watched as Keller picked up the receiver. "Richard Keller speaking." His confident expression faltered immediately. "Yes, sir?" "Yes, that's happening currently." He glanced nervously at Marcus. "No, I wasn't aware." Keller's eyes widened as he listened to the voice on the other end. "That's impossible," he whispered. But the microphone on the phone desk captured his words clearly. "Keller." The voice boomed through the speakerphone that Keller had accidentally activated in his confusion. "This is William Davidson, chairman of the board at First Capital Bank Corporation. Are you currently interacting with a Mr. Marcus Johnson?" The entire lobby fell silent. "Yes, sir," Keller stammered. "And would you describe your treatment of Mr. Johnson as being in line with our customer service standards?" Keller swallowed hard. "Sir, there was a suspicious transaction." "A certified check," Davidson interrupted, "from the investment firm that has been purchasing controlling interest in First Capital over the past year. The transaction that was scheduled for finalization today." The blood drained from Keller's face. "Mr. Keller, are you aware that as of 11:30 this morning, all final documents were signed at our corporate office making Mr. Marcus Johnson the majority shareholder and new chairman of First Capital Bank?" Audible gasps echoed through the lobby. The live stream comments exploded. Someone shouted, "Oh my God! That's not possible!" Keller stammered. "Mr. Johnson was visiting your branch to both complete the final escrow deposit and to personally observe our customer service standards before the public announcement tomorrow. Based on what I'm seeing on social media and hearing from our PR department about a live stream, I'd say he's gotten an extremely informative demonstration." Marcus stepped forward, now addressing the speakerphone. "Mr. Davidson, this is Marcus Johnson." "Mr. Johnson, on behalf of the entire board, I offer our most sincere apologies. We were notified of the situation by your assistant who saw the live stream. Regional Director Patricia Summers is already en route to the branch. She should arrive within 10 minutes. "Thank you," Marcus replied calmly. "Should we contact the police regarding the destroyed check and physical assault?" Davidson asked. Keller's face went from white to gray. "Let's hold on that decision," Marcus replied. "I'd like to speak with Ms. Summers first." "Of course. And Mr. Keller?" Davidson's voice hardened. "Yes, sir," Keller whispered. "Consider yourself immediately suspended pending review. Please surrender your keys and access cards to Ms. Summers upon her arrival." The call ended, leaving the lobby in stunned silence. Tanya, the young teller, who had first assisted Marcus, stepped forward. "Sir, is it true? You own the bank now?" Marcus nodded. "As of this morning, my investment firm holds controlling interest in First Capital Bank." The older woman, Mrs. Abernathy, began to applaud. Others joined in, creating a surreal moment of spontaneous recognition. The live streamer narrated excitedly, "This is incredible! The man Keller just humiliated turns out to be the owner of the entire bank. I've never seen anything like this. Viewer count just hit 50,000. Keller stood frozen, his career and reputation disintegrating before his eyes. Security guard Davis approached Marcus, extending his hand. "Sir, I want to apologize. If I had known—" "You were doing your job," Marcus assured him. "But perhaps we should discuss how security protocols are implemented moving forward." The front doors swung open as a distinguished woman in her 60s entered briskly. Patricia Summers, the regional director, had arrived in record time, her expression a mixture of professional concern and barely contained fury. "Mr. Johnson," she approached immediately, extending her hand. "Patricia Summers, I cannot begin to express our organization's dismay at what's occurred." "Summers," Marcus greeted her, "I appreciate your quick response." She turned toward Keller, who seemed to physically shrink under her gaze. "Richard, I need your keys, access cards, and passcodes now." Patricia Summers transformed the bank manager's office into an impromptu command center. Within minutes of her arrival, the branch was temporarily closed to new customers, with only those already inside allowed to complete their transactions with other tellers. Marcus sat across from her, his composure intact despite the morning's events. "3 black SUVs just pulled up," called one of the employees, looking out the window. A team of 6 people in business attire entered the bank, led by an authoritative woman in her 50s. "That would be our corporate response team," Summers explained to Marcus, "including HR, legal, and communications." The lead woman approached directly, introducing herself. "Mr. Johnson, I'm Diane Rivera, Chief Compliance Officer. We've secured all video footage from the security cameras, collected initial statements from witnesses, and preserved all evidence, including the destroyed check." She placed a tablet before him, showing multiple camera angles of the entire incident. The footage is unambiguous regarding both the destruction of financial instruments and the physical contact. Marcus nodded. "Thank you for being thorough." Keller sat in a chair against the wall, his face ashen as he watched his career imploding in real time. The HR director approached him with paperwork. "Mr. Keller, this is an immediate administrative leave notice. You'll retain your salary during the investigation, but your access to all bank systems has been terminated. You're required to surrender your company phone and laptop immediately." Keller handed them over wordlessly. Rivera continued her briefing to Marcus. "Sir, our preliminary investigation has already uncovered some enduring patterns." She hesitated, glancing at Summers. "Go ahead," the regional director nodded. "We've found 14 formal complaints against Mr. Keller in the past 3 years, all involving customers of color who reported unusual scrutiny, delays, or outright rejection of their banking request." Marcus wasn't surprised. Were these complaints investigated? Summers looked uncomfortable, not as thoroughly as they should have been. They were handled at the local level, with Keller essentially investigating himself. "That ends today," Marcus stated firmly. The legal team member approached next. "Mr. Johnson, we need your decision regarding criminal charges. Destruction of a financial instrument is a violation of federal banking regulations, and the physical assault could constitute battery." All eyes turned to Keller, who seemed to shrink further into himself. "Before I decide," Marcus addressed the room, "I'd like to hear if Mr. Keller has anything to say." The room fell silent as Keller struggled to find words. I didn't know who you were," he finally managed. "And that's the problem," Marcus replied. "The way you treated me today, would you consider that an isolated incident or your standard practice?" Keller's silence was damning. "The fact is," Marcus continued, "banking discrimination doesn't usually happen this dramatically. It's in the slightly higher interest rates offered to customers of color. It's in the loan applications that get additional review. It's in the thousand small ways certain customers are made to feel unwelcome. The live stream, still running from several phones in the lobby, captured every word. The viewer count had surpassed 100,000. Keller finally found his voice. "Please, I have a family, a mortgage. My son is starting college next year." His voice cracked. "I didn't know. You shouldn't have needed to know who I was to treat me with basic respect," Marcus replied. The bank's communications director approached urgently. "Sir, this incident is exploding online. We've received inquiries from every major news outlet in Chicago, plus national business media. We need to issue a statement immediately." Marcus nodded. "Prepare a statement acknowledging what happened and affirming that First Capital is committed to serving all customers equally. No excuses or corporate doublespeak." "Yes, sir." Marcus turned back to Keller. "Here's what's going to happen. You're suspended without pay while we conduct a thorough audit of your client interactions and decisions over the past 5 years. Every loan denied, every account closed, every complaint filed, all will be reviewed by an independent third party." Keller swallowed hard. "The results of that audit will determine whether we pursue criminal charges. In the meantime, you'll be required to attend comprehensive bias training, not as a path back to employment here, because that won't be happening, but because I genuinely hope you'll learn from this experience." "You're not pressing charges?" Keller asked incredulously. "Not at this moment," Marcus clarified. "But make no mistake, this isn't mercy, it's strategy. Your public humiliation will accomplish more for banking equality than your arrest would. The video of today's incident will become a training tool for every employee at every branch of this bank." The bank's security chief approached next. "Sir, we've confirmed at least 17 customers were recording the incident. The most popular live stream has over 200,000 viewers now and is being picked up by news sites." "Good," Marcus said simply. "Good?" the security chief questioned. "Transparency is the best disinfectant," Marcus explained. "For too long, these interactions have happened behind closed doors, leaving victims without proof or recourse." Patricia Summers stepped forward. "Mr. Johnson, we've prepared the conference room if you'd like to address the staff." Marcus nodded, rising from his seat. As he walked through the bank, employees watched with a mixture of awe and apprehension. The young teller, Tanya, approached nervously. "Sir, I just wanted to say, I'm Jewel. I'm sorry I didn't do more when Mr. Keller was treating you that way." "Were you in a position to challenge him without risking your job?" Marcus asked gently. She shook her head. "That's another thing that changes today," he assured her. In the conference room, 20 anxious employees had gathered. Marcus stood before them, not as a victim of discrimination, but as their new chairman. "Today has been revealing in ways I hadn't anticipated," he began. "I came to observe, not to expose. But what happened provides us with an unprecedented opportunity for transformation." He looked around the room, making eye contact with each person. "As of tomorrow, First Capital Bank begins a new chapter. We will lead the industry not just in profits, but in practices. Every policy, procedure, and performance metric will be examined through the lens of equity and inclusion." The employees listened intently as Marcus outlined his vision. Not just corporate platitudes, but specific actionable changes to lending practices, hiring protocols, and community investment. "Your jobs are secure," he assured them, sensing their anxiety. "But our culture is changing, effective immediately. Any employee who cannot treat every customer with equal respect regardless of their appearance or background should tender their resignation now." No one moved. "Good," Marcus nodded. "Then let's get to work." As Marcus concluded the meeting, Patricia Summers approached with an update. "Sir, federal banking regulators have been notified of today's incident. They're sending representatives tomorrow to discuss compliance measures." "Schedule them for 9:00 IEM, Marcus instructed. "I want them to see that we're already implementing changes." Outside the bank, a small crowd had gathered as news spread. Several reporters had arrived, cameras ready. The security team escorted Keller out a side entrance, but not before he was spotted by the crowd, prompting calls of "Shame!" and "That's him!" Inside, Marcus made one final stop before leaving, at Tanya Wilson's teller window. "Miss Wilson, I'd like you to process a new certified check, please." He handed her a replacement for the destroyed one. "Right away, Mr. Johnson," she replied with newfound confidence. "And one more thing," he added. I'll be establishing a new management training program. Your name was recommended to me as someone with potential. Would you be interested?" Her eyes widened. "Absolutely, sir." "Good. We'll talk next week about your future with First Capital." As Marcus finally left the bank, his phone buzzed with a text from his daughter. "Dad, you're trending on social media. Are you okay? What happened?" He replied simply, "I'm fine. I'll explain everything at dinner." Today was educational. Another message appeared from the governor. "Just saw the news. Historic acquisition and standing up against discrimination in the same day. We need to talk about a statewide banking equity initiative." Marcus smiled. Sometimes the most powerful changes began with the most unexpected moments. 3 months later, the federal courthouse was packed beyond capacity. Journalists filled the press section, notebooks ready as Marcus Johnson took the witness stand. The Department of Justice investigation into discriminatory banking practices had expanded well beyond First Capital Bank, ensnaring 6 major financial institutions across the Midwest. "Mr. Johnson," the lead federal prosecutor addressed him, "could you explain to the court what prompted your decision to document your experience that day?" "I hadn't originally planned to," Marcus testified. "The documentation happened organically through other customers' recordings. But having spent 20 years in finance, I'd heard countless stories from friends, colleagues, and community members about similar treatment. The difference was that I was in a position to do something about it." The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, leaned forward. "And prior to the incident, you had already purchased controlling interest in the bank?" "Yes, Your Honor. The acquisition was finalized that morning." "So Mr. Keller literally tore up a check from his new boss?" the judge clarified, eliciting murmurs throughout the courtroom. "That's correct. The evidence presented was damning. The audit of Richard Keller's tenure had revealed systematic discrimination. Loan applicants of color were 3 times more likely to be denied, faced interest rates averaging 2-3% higher, and endured wait times twice as long as white customers with identical financial profiles. The Justice Department attorney displayed a chart on the courtroom screens. "Mr. Johnson, could you explain what we're seeing here? This shows approval rates for small business loans at First Capital during Keller's management tenure, broken down by race and neighborhood. As you can see, predominantly black neighborhoods received approval at only 23%, the rate of majority white areas, even when controlling for all relevant financial factors. When the verdict came, it was decisive. Richard Keller was found guilty of multiple violations of the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, the Fair Housing Act, and the Civil Rights Act. His sentence, 3 years in federal prison and a $250,000 0-cents fine. But the most significant outcome wasn't Keller's conviction, it was the consent decree that 6 major banks signed, agreeing to comprehensive reforms in $1 0-cents, $7 billion in community reinvestment funds for historically underserved neighborhoods. 6 months later, the Johnson banking standards are transforming the industry, announced the financial analyst on CNBC. First Capital Bank has seen customer growth increase 43% since implementing the new protocols, with particularly strong growth among minority entrepreneurs. Marcus clicked off the TV in his expanded corporate office. The wall behind his desk displayed framed newspaper headlines documenting the changes sweeping through the banking industry. First Capital leads blanking equity revolution. Johnson standards adopted by 23 major banks. Black small businesses loans up 67% under new protocols. Tanya Wilson, now Assistant Vice President of Community Banking, knocked on his open door. "The Federal Reserve representatives are here for the quarterly review, sir." "Thank you, Tanya. How are the numbers looking?" She smiled proudly. "Customer complaints down 67%, trust metrics up 89%, and we've approved more small business loans in minority neighborhoods this quarter than in the previous 3 years combined." The Johnson standards, as they'd come to be known throughout the industry, mandated blind first review of all loan applications, removing names and photos that might trigger bias. They required diversity at all levels of banking leadership. Most importantly, they established independent oversight of banking practices, with real-time monitoring of approval rates across demographic groups. In Washington, D.C., Marcus testified before Congress about the standards, leading to the introduction of the Banking Equity and Transparency Act. The bill garnered rare bipartisan support, with conservatives appreciating its emphasis on merit-based lending and liberals embracing its civil rights protections. Patricia Summers, now First Capital's CEO, had become the industry's most vocal advocate for the standards. "This isn't just about doing what's right," she told banking executives at an industry conference. "It's about tapping into overlooked markets. First Capital's profits are up 32% since implementation." 1 year later, Marcus stood in his new office at First Capital's headquarters, now renamed Johnson Financial Group. The view of Chicago's skyline reminded him daily of how far he'd come from the South Side neighborhood where he grew up, where banks like this one had refused to invest for decades. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Zoe entered, now 14 and even more perceptive. "Dad, your speech for the national rollout is ready for review. Tomorrow, all 50 state banking associations would formally adopt the Johnson standards as industry best practices. What had begun with one humiliating incident had catalyzed transformation across American finance." "Thanks, sweetheart." He took the tablet she offered. "How's the science project coming along?" "First place," she grinned. "My research on economic mobility across neighborhoods got picked up by the University of Chicago for their Youth Scholars Program." Marcus smiled with pride. "Your mom would be so proud of you." "She'd be proud of you too, Dad," Zoe replied. "Remember what she always said? Sometimes the universe puts you exactly where you need to be." Marcus nodded, remembering Vanessa's wisdom. Had he not experienced Keller's discrimination firsthand, would he have prioritized systemic change so aggressively? Sometimes the most painful moments created the greatest opportunities for transformation. His phone buzzed with a news alert. Richard Keller had given his first interview from federal prison to a documentary filmmaker. "I didn't see myself as racist," Keller had said, "but watching the video of how I treated Mr. Johnson forced me to confront ugly truths about myself. I deserved this sentence, and I hope my story serves as a warning to others." The documentary Banking While Black had already been viewed by over 15 million people online. It chronicled not just Marcus's experience, but dozens of similar stories that might otherwise have remained hidden. That evening, Marcus visited the Southside Community Center where his journey began, where a young financial advisor once held workshops teaching residents how to navigate a banking system designed to exclude them. Now, that same building housed the Johnson Financial Literacy Program, providing education, mentorship, and startup funding for neighborhood entrepreneurs. "Mr. Johnson!" A group of teenagers recognized him immediately. "We're using your app for our business class project." The Johnson Banking app, designed specifically for underserved communities, had already connected 200,000 first-time entrepreneurs with over $500 million 0 cents in capital. "Let me see what you're working on," Marcus said, sitting down with the students. As they eagerly showed him their business plans, he couldn't help but reflect on the extraordinary chain of events that had led here. 1 year ago, a bank manager had torn up his check, believing he was just another black man who didn't belong in that marble lobby. Today, that same lobby displayed a plaque commemorating the incident that launched an industry-wide reckoning. As Marcus walked home later that evening, he passed a billboard for Johnson Financial Group. Its message was simple: banking for everyone, no exceptions. His phone rang. It was the president's economic advisor. "Marcus, the White House wants to discuss expanding the Johnson standards to all federal financial institutions. Are you available to meet next week?" "Absolutely," Marcus replied. "This is just the beginning." If this story inspired you to recognize how single moments can spark systemic change, hit that subscribe button now. Share your own experiences with discrimination in the comments below. Your story might be the catalyst that inspires the next transformation. Remember, sometimes being underestimated is your greatest advantage. Like, subscribe, and join us next week for another incredible journey of justice served.